Good day. And in this episode of the Lead Machine Growth Show, we explore the world of career transformation and leadership with Dan Gomer.
Thank
Once
you.
a science, pardon me?
I said, thanks for having me.
Oh, yeah. Once a science teacher and basketball coach, he transitioned to real estate, being a leader in a growing and thriving business. He now leverages his teaching skills to mentor and develop an expanding team. Join us as we explore how his journey from the classroom to the competitive real estate field, and he provides actionable insights and strategies for personal and professional growth, leadership, and success. So whether you're contemplating a career shift like many of us are, or aiming to enhance your leadership skills, this episode is packed with valuable lessons that will help you reach your highest potential.
Welcome to the Lead Machine Growth Show, where you will discover how to tackle your tech, master your message, and design your dream. Paul Guyan, the mastermind behind the Lead Machine, introduces you to trailblazers who inspire you to implement life-changing solutions and systems you can model to nurture your leads and get your offers seen by your ideal clients who will invest in themselves and you. Be sure you visit our website at www.leadmachinegrowthshow.com. While you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now, tune in and get ready to transform your vision into reality.
Welcome to the Lead Machine Growth Show. I'm Paul Guyan, your host, Lead Machine coach, and the founder of the Lead Machine Marketing Group and Mastermind. And I'm dedicating to helping you tackle your tech, master your message, and design your dream life. And so whether you're just starting out or looking to take your business to the next level, let's get this conversation started and turn your dreams into reality. So Dan, welcome. It's so great to have you again. What was that spark that led you to go, hey, teaching is all right. It's been a good gig for a while. I love the basketball, but what was it that made you want to switch?
So, I think we all know kind of some of the struggles that come along with being in public education. I taught eighth grade science. And so a lot of people kind of say, oh, yeah, it's because you were teaching middle school, and that really wasn't it. I think the hardest part for me was I'm a very creative person. I like to go big. And I felt like when I was in education, I didn't have a whole lot of room to spread my wings and fly on that side of things. And it was kind of like once I got, into a rhythm where it's like, okay, the first quarter I teach this, the second quarter I teach this, my creativity kind of got stifled a little bit. And then on top of that, because you get used to it, right? It's the same thing over and over and over.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, there's just a bunch of stuff kind of coming down on you. It's a really tough gig. I love teaching. I just knew that public education wasn't for me. And so quite frankly, I wanted to get into a field that was going to make me some money.
Yeah.
And so I left education to get into real estate because I wanted to make money. And that's what I did, and I don't know how far down the rabbit hole you want me to go with this whole thing, but I eventually got to the point where I kind of had to prove to myself that I could make money, and just so that I just had to prove it to myself because I lacked confidence. And when I got to the point where I was like, hey, I can actually do this. I can be, top 1% and I can do all that kind of stuff. It was kind of like, okay, now what? And so now I've gone back into the education piece where I have a team of a little over 30 agents now. And so I get to teach and coach and help other people develop their skills and their businesses. And so I get to teach, but I get to do it in my own way, which is super exciting. I love doing it.
Awesome. You mentioned confidence, and so many of us, like I'm transitioning from a full-time job into coaching and teaching and providing marketing services. And it's been my ministry for my whole life, but working for other people and working for, as an entrepreneur. But one of the things that I think that we run into when we transition from a career, we forget all the lessons that we learned back when we were doing that career. And I know this is true for me and many of the clients that I work with. They go, well, now I'm a coach, but I don't know anything. I don't have any credibility. And so there's that lack of confidence. How did you overcome that? What were some of the challenges that you faced, and what did you do to break through?
So, I think to a certain extent, there's no replacement for experience, right? And, one of the drivers for me with kind of going big in real estate was that I wanted to make money and I wanted to prove to myself that I could make money. However, at the same time, in the back of my mind, there was always this idea of getting back to teaching, starting a team and helping other people grow their business. I knew that was always a direction I was going to take at some point. And I knew that, if I had sold 10 homes in a year and that was my best year ever, it was going to be a bit of a challenge having that clout, I guess, in the industry. Now, that's not to say that I couldn't still be a fantastic leader and a fantastic coach and a fantastic teacher having done that. But, I also believe that being somebody who has walked the walk and being like, I can show you how to sell 40 houses in a year if that's what you want to do. I can show you how to make 20 or sell 20 houses in a year if that's what you want to do, because I've done it. I know how to do it. And so I think that that's, in my opinion, the best way to do it. But that took me to the brink of destruction in a lot of ways, you know what I mean? With my family and my kids and my time and my energy. And it was a lot of work. So, I think additionally to that, I think you can gain a lot of that wisdom and a lot of that skill by becoming an expert in your field, by talking to people who have done the things that you need to learn how to do or teach other people how to do them. I say that you can travel to the future if you talk to somebody who's done the things that you want to do. All you got to do is talk to them, and you can travel to the future and go, oh, okay, so that's the roadmap. All right, cool. And I think that if you can do that, if you really commit to being an expert, even though you haven't achieved it yourself, like I've never played college basketball, but I believe that I could coach a college basketball team if I really wanted to. But I would have to go lean on other people. I would really have to dig in and become an expert in that field in order to be able to do that, and constantly be learning, right? And then the next step would be to implement. So John over here said that I'm supposed to do this, this, and this. I come over here and I help Susie do this, this, and this, and it works. And I'm like, great, proof of concept. So you can also prove the concept, that way as well through little baby steps over time. But once again, it's going to take experience and time to get to the point where you're really that expert in that field.
Yeah, and I like what you said there. And really, we need to have mentors and coaches. We need to have people that either we're directly working with or we're modeling, standing on the shoulders of giants. There are many successful people in industry and in real estate and in coaching and in basketball. Every industry, there's leaders and people who are doing, and they're using formulas, and they have strategies and tactics that they use that work. They've been tried and true. So there's no shame in using that and adapting it to yourself, to what you like to do best in the way you connect with people. So I think that's a really great way to get confidence, is saying, well, I'm going to do what he's doing, or I'm going to do what my coach tells me to do, even if it's way out of my comfort zone, that's usually the case.
Right.
So
absolutely.
What were some of those challenges that you faced that were kind of like, oh gosh, can I really do this? Or did you just go straight into it?
Yeah, well, I've reinvented myself a number of times. I think a lot of people have. One thing that always kind of impressed me with people that I would meet that are in like their 80s or 90s, and you ask them about or even people that are in like their 60s and 70s that have retired. You're like, so tell me about your career. And it's like, well, I did this for 15 years. I did this for 20 years. I did this for, 30 years. And you start adding it up and you're like, oh my God, that actually makes sense. Like you had 3 full-on careers in your life. That's crazy. And so it is possible to reinvent yourself. And so I reinvented myself when I got into real estate out of education. Some of the challenges that came along with that whole thing were, I'm in a whole new industry. I knew nothing about leadership, and I'm trying to run crews to do fix and flips. I knew nothing about real estate. I didn't even have my license at first, there was just a huge learning curve. I was
Yeah.
31, had a lot to learn. So there was a lot of challenges with that. And then when I decided, well, I'm not going to flip houses anymore. I'm going to sell houses. I'm going to leverage my license and be a realtor. Well, then I thought it was going to be smooth transition. It wasn't. It was a complete reinvention, a whole new business. I had to tell everybody what I did. I had to build confidence in them. I had to, build a whole new business. And so that was very difficult. Now I'm transitioning into more of a leadership role. So I'm trying to figure out how to transition out of sales and into strictly leadership. And so that comes with its own series of challenges and struggles. And so right now, I think one of the biggest challenges is what does it mean to be a good leader, right? And so I haven't led a team of 30 people before. Like going back to what we were talking about, I haven't done this before. I'm building the ship or the plane as we're flying. So
Yeah.
so I'm figuring this out as we go. And so I have to be a learner constantly, and constantly trying to improve and talking to other people and all that kind of stuff. And so I think, if I had to summarize like the common ground, the common thread between all of those pieces when I'm making those big transitions, it's that I would say the biggest difficulty is the fear of the unknown. And that is what makes most people, in my experience, pump the brakes and pull back and go, you know what? It's a little uncomfortable. I think I'm just going to go back to the status quo and do whatever it is that I was doing. It's really difficult to push through that fear, recognize that fear, and say, this is normal. This is healthy. This is what's going to motivate me to do it well and do it right, because this is obviously important to me, or else I wouldn't be afraid. So leaning into that fear and finding the solutions in the midst of all that fear was probably the most difficult thing. And the last thing that I'll say about that with working with the fear is I've done it so many times now that it's not easy, but it's a heck of a lot easier because I've traveled this path of like, oh yeah, that's the fear. Yeah, I can get through that. Okay. Like what's next? So it makes it easier over time as you push through it.
Yeah, in the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, he dedicates a chapter, I think it's chapter 10, it's called The Ghosts of Fear. And he there is a checklist of all the things that we're afraid of: poverty and loss of love, loss of life, health, and there's a whole bunch of things that are common fears. And the thing about fear is that the likelihood of whatever it is that you're afraid of is so very low. And we're already, we're often, I call it, we're off in the weeds thinking about we're down the road so many ways. We catastrophize what could possibly happen, what the worst thing was happen. But the likelihood of that happening is so remote. And there are ways that you can overcome that, like taking action, having faith, and having a vision, having a North Star, a compass that keeps you, and having like-minded people around who can encourage you.
Absolutely. And yeah, just to build on that, I was just listening to Ed Milet the other day on his podcast, and he was talking about this exact same thing. And he was like, I finally learned that I would spend all this time catastrophizing, or whatever you want to call it, right? About like all these horrible things that could happen. And you spend all this time and energy, on these negative things, most of which never happen. But even if it does happen, it didn't stop it from happening. So no matter what, you spent all this time worrying about something that hasn't happened yet. And if it doesn't happen, it was a waste of time. And if it does happen, it was a waste of time because you still have to deal with it. But instead of experiencing that negative thing once, you experienced it 57 times.
57
because
times,
of the 56 times that you were just lamenting over it. And then the one time that it actually happened. So you might as well just wait and see. And if it happens, experience it once. So I thought that was kind of an interesting way to.
Yeah, we ruminate. And we all know people who are like that. And sometimes we are that person. My mother was that way. We call that worrywart back then.
Right.
And my mother, and she's got, when I first, I knew my mother-in-law before I ever met my wife. And we lived in the same neighborhood. We knew each other for about 10 years. And finally met her daughter, and we liked each other. We started dating. Immediately, she said, "Well, when are you guys getting married? What are you going to do with the boys? Where are they going to live? Are you guys going to live together? Are you going to buy a new house? You're going to all this stuff." And this is like at Thanksgiving, first time I'm over for dinner. There's 20 people in the room, and we're going, "Oh my gosh!" But that's what can happen. And then we did end up getting married, and we did sort all those things out. But we only had to do that once. But we weren't worried about it.
Right.
But we knew we were right for each other.
Right.
So, anyways, getting
Well,
off on
that's that faith piece.
yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
I have to intentionally come back to faith
Yeah,
because it's so easy to be like, oh, it's not working. It's not doing this. Da, 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 da. Like I have to be really intentional to come back to like, you will be fine.
yeah.
Just take it as it comes. You'll be fine. Have faith. It's okay.
Right. And if you think about all the things, we've all been through really horrible, nasty things in our life. And I know I have, and a lot of people that I know have, but not a single one of them killed me. And I'm better for it today. I'm better for all those experiences I've had, good, bad, and indifferent, the good and the bad, the ugly, all that stuff that I've experienced, I've gone through. I'm a better man for it today.
Yeah.
So getting back to the interview, we're talking about your background in teaching. So how do you incorporate that into your role in your new leadership role?
Yeah. Well, the thing that I love about it is, I always tell people, I don't know if I said this at the beginning, but I love the art of teaching, just didn't like the job of public education.
Yeah.
So there are so many skills. In fact, with my real estate team, I am specifically targeting former teachers that are now in real estate
Oh,
because there's a big range of skills that makes you a successful teacher that also makes you a successful real estate agent. In education, you get dumped in a classroom and it's like, hey, here's your curriculum for the year. Like, see ya, good luck. Oh, by the way, here comes all the kids later, so you got to figure it out. There's nobody in there holding your hand and like, now come on, you got to do it. It's like, figure it out. You got parents breathing down your neck. You got administration breathing down your neck. Figure it out. And so teachers are very resourceful. They're very resilient. They're hardworking. They're creative. They're people, right? All of these skills. And so, these are all skills, thankfully, that I believe I possess. And they've been very helpful in building my real estate career, connecting with people, networking, all that kind of stuff. And now as a leader, I get to like the fun teaching skills where it's like, okay, how do I get this concept across to people so that they understand it in their own way? I love that stuff. And so now I get to take complex ideas like this NAR settlement and break them down to like the components that are really necessary and then help my team kind of overcome their fear or do whatever it is they need to do. So that's what I think is my zone of genius. That's what I really love to do. And so now I get to do that on a fairly regular basis. And I think it makes me a better leader. I still got a lot of work to do, but I think it makes me a better leader and makes me enjoy what I do a heck of a lot more.
That there's a lesson for you marketers out there or for anybody, any entrepreneur out there, knowing your audience. You knew your audience. You knew what skill set they had. You knew a lot about teachers. Who was your target audience for recruiting into your leadership team. That's super important. Plus, you knew what their pain points were. You know why they're transitioning because you did it yourself, and it's probably a lot likely. So you were able to speak to them on the same terms that they understood because you knew their language. You knew what kind of results they wanted to do. You knew that there wasn't money, and the money that in public education, it's not there, but it is in real estate. But there's also that interesting thing of that correlation of education and teaching, and those new leaders that you're bringing in, those new realtors that you're bringing in, they get to use their same skills to teach, to educate their customers, their clients, and so those are translatable. So that's the perfect audience for for you. And so if you're a marketer, if you know your audience, and you know their pain points, you're going to be a heck of a lot more successful.
It's huge. It's so big. In fact, next week I'm going to be teaching a class on developing your avatar. I don't like that terminology, but I know a lot of people use it, and I've used it. But I wasn't clear on my avatar until I kind of had this like waking dream, and I was like, oh, because I had heard in my career, oh, you're good at real estate because you were a teacher, but nobody ever explained why. And I just kind of wrote it off and was like, whatever. And I woke up one day and I'm like, oh, I know why teachers are good real estate agents. And it was everything that I had just mentioned, like it clicked. And then I started thinking, well, if I was surrounded by people like that all day, how would I feel about that? And I'm like, that would be freaking awesome. All right. Like, I'm going after teachers. And so it was kind of an accident that it came together. But then I got so motivated, so excited to go talk to these people. And it's easy. It's so easy because it's in my zone of genius. Like you said, I get it and all that kind of stuff. And so I was spending all this time talking to these people that weren't resonating with me necessarily. It was difficult. It was hard. It was painful. It was slow. And now I'm like, bing, 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 bing. And it's just easy and it's fun. And I'm connecting with people that I want to be connected with. So, I mean, it's like win, 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 win.
Right. And they know, like, and trust you because you speak their language.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it makes it a heck of a lot easier. So in what ways do you aim to help others succeed in real estate and beyond through your work in expanding your team? So what are some of those ways?
Great question. So we're actually in the middle of a rebrand right now. So right now it's Dan's home team. We're going to rebrand to Rialto. And so we're getting that website built out right now. And the reason that I bring that up is because part of that rebranding is, what do we do? What do we stand for? What's our mission? What's our vision? And so I don't have the exact tagline done yet, but it's something to the effect of making people's lives better through the vehicle of real estate. So that's the people on our team. I recognize what real estate has done for me in my life with got a beautiful house and, that stuff, but then also how it's forced me to grow and become a better human being. It's made me a better leader and all of these things. That's thanks to real estate. So I want to pay that forward to somebody else, show them how to make those kind of changes in their life. But then additionally, putting the onus on them to do the same thing for everybody that they serve, whether it's their family, their clients, their friends, whatever. How do you make the world a better place leveraging the vehicle of real estate? Representing people well, keeping them calm in the storm, whatever it is, right? How are you going to leverage real estate to make the world better is essentially what we're all about. And so, so like I said, I think that's a great question. And once again, as I've dialed in the messaging for Rialto, it has energized me because I'm like, yes, this is what I want to stand for. Like, selling houses is great, but that's just the vehicle for what I'm really passionate about, which is making the world better. And so I'm figuring out how to put those pieces together now, which is super cool.
Yeah, and you could actually ask some of your customers what was their, like, if you think about the before and after, before they met Dan and they experienced Dan and they had this transformation. So what was their life like before and what was it after? So maybe they can help you with that language, that messaging to say, oh, well, Dan, you simplified it. You made it so easy. Or, I could tell that you were a stand-up guy because I know that you're honest, you're trustworthy, you were transparent. You told me everything. You didn't hide anything. You were communicative. You followed up, whatever it is. I mean, a lot of times it's just that's got to be a follow-up, friendly follow-up fast, because it's so competitive. The person who gets and responds to the lead first is 9 times out of 10 gonna land the sale or the listing or whatever it is. I don't know what if you're in residential or commercial or whatever. But anyways, it doesn't matter. Human nature is such that, boy, Dan's team's on it. He's on it, and they're on it right away. And I know that they're going to take care of me. So there might be some trust factors or something in there that they might be able to shed some light on for you.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
how have you I always like to tell stories, and I know people love to hear stories. Are there stories that you have about your business and about that you teach uh, your your realtors, your people, how to use stories to help convey those concepts? I mean, in school, there was always story problems. I used to hate them because I didn't never understood what they were, but now I understand it. It's so much easier to explain a difficult concept by using a story that's relatable from everyday life. Do you incorporate that into your teaching and into your selling?
Absolutely. Just recently, going back to this NAR settlement, right? So there's this big lawsuit between the National Association of Realtors and, you know, just there's this big lawsuit, right? And it just kind of, it's still going a little bit, but whatever, like kind of the first phase of whatever's coming down just recently went into effect, at least here in Colorado. Um, so how, so it's kind of one of those things where everybody feels like the sky is falling because at first nobody knows what's going on. It's chaos, it's fear, like what's happening. And so everyone's kind of freaking out. And so I took it as my responsibility as the team lead to go out there and really do some research, listen to all the attorneys who are talking about it, get as much information as I can, talk to my managing brokers, all that kind of stuff, right? And so I started to paint a pretty good picture of it. And in Colorado, we've already done a pretty good job of mitigating the problems in the lawsuit. And so there really wasn't a whole lot of massive changes for us. And so, everyone's freaking out and we're sitting in the team meeting. And I said, you guys all remember this thing called TRID? And this was like a lending thing that came out after the Great Recession. And so there's all these big rule changes and all the lenders are like, the sky is falling. We're never going to do another loan. Like 3 months in, it was like, TRID what? What? Like for those of you that have been around long enough, you remember that? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, this is TRID for us. It's not that big of a deal. And when I said that, everyone was like, oh, okay. Like it kind of puts everything into perspective,
Yeah.
And so I love to use stories as much as I can, exactly for that reason, put it in perspective, help others remember, kind of understand concepts through different angles, all that kind of stuff.
I get this impression from you, and I wrote this down so I wouldn't forget. I get the impression from you because we've had this interview before, and so I know you a little bit better than meeting you for the first time. One of the things that I think about you is I think that you have I've already mentioned trust, honesty, integrity, those kinds of things. I get the feeling that's the kind of man you are. You're stand up, and people love that about you, and that's why you're a good leader. So how
Thank
do
you.
you teach those values and keep those values alive, that they're they're part of who you are, and everything that you want your company to become, you want to make sure that those values live on past you. So how do you pay that forward?
That's another great question. I appreciate the kind words. I do try to live my life that way. But with one, it comes back to the avatar. It comes back to like knowing the way I put it is, if you had to sit in a cubicle next to one person 40 hours a week for the next 20 years, what would you want that person to be like? Like that, to me, that's a really great way to develop your avatar. And so for me, it's about not only promoting the idea of integrity and honesty and all that kind of stuff, but like leading by example. This is how we do it. When problems come up on team meetings, this is how we handle it. And just consistent. So it's kind of all of those things. It's knowing who you want to connect with. Like there's people, agents, real estate agents who I've connected with who I'm just like, there is no way I would ever invite that person onto our team. And even if they came and were like, I really want to join your team, I would be like, no, not going to happen,
Yeah.
because they would destroy the culture.
Yeah.
And it's so important to have the right people come over. And so, you know what? I'm going to break it down to one word: authenticity.
Mhm.
As a leader, if you are authentic, you are going to repel people who don't like it, and you are going to attract people who do. And And you're not going to be afraid to tell somebody, sorry, like you're not a good fit, or you're an amazing fit. Let's ride, let's go, let's do this thing, right? Like it's naturally going to come together. And then as you get more and more people who all kind of, fit that culture, it just gets stronger and stronger and stronger, because then they bring in people that, fit the culture, and everybody begins to grow it. And, I'm only at 30. So what happens when you get to 500? What happens when you get to 2000? Like, we'll see. But I believe that if I stay authentic and I stay very clear on what our values are, as a team, and what our mission statement is, and what our vision is, then that's going to be the best route to keep the culture together and keep the right people in place moving in one direction.
Yeah, and I love that you use the word authenticity. And sometimes I think that it's overused, and people say that they're authentic or they're transparent, yet they don't walk that walk. They talk it, but they don't walk it. And so if you want to be authentic and transparent and honest and integrity, that starts at home, and it's everywhere in your life, and people are watching you as a leader, that they know if you have integrity or not, or if you're being authentic or not. And so many people say that they're transparent, and you see it everywhere, and people have their BS meters up more now than ever.
Right.
And so if you're not, you're toast. And so bravo, congratulations for that, and wanting to have that in your company and have that live on. And I know that you're an authentic guy. So,
well, thank you. I try.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's hard, by the way. There are times, I can't remember what it was, but something happened recently where it was the equivalent of, like, they forgot to ring something up at the register and you noticed it and didn't say anything, right? I can't remember what it was, but it was like the equivalent of something like that. And I really started thinking about it, and I'm like, how you do one thing is how you do all things. And I was like, that's just, if I really want to be who I'm talking about, when I recognize something like it's the goal is 100%, on point, on message, and so that's really hard to do, because there's times where it's like, I just want to be an a-hole. Or I want to quit, or I want to like cheat, or I want to, and holding yourself accountable is really hard to do sometimes. And perfection's not possible, but
it's not possible. But you run into those situations, and sometimes you're faced with situations where, oh gosh, if I just look the other way, I could make an extra $10,000 in this deal, or I could get this deal if I didn't mention this thing, or if I'm importing something from China and I tell customs that it's this, but it's really this, I won't have to pay 11 or 12 or 18% duties. I can beat the competition. That's happening everywhere, and your customer may never know it. Your team may never know it. You'll know it, and God will know it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's important, to be, to have a North Star that says, you know what, I'm not going to take that deal because it's going to hurt my integrity.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So switching gears, you also have written some books. You've written 3 books. What the heck? 3? What inspired you to do that? Probably your journey is interesting. So what was the inspiration behind your books?
So my first book was, I would just come home sometimes and be like tired from work or whatever, and I would just have these ideas bouncing around in my head, and I would just write random ideas. And so first of all, when my entire school career, I was horrible in English, horrible at writing, terrible. And so I honestly don't know when the thought arose. Maybe I could write a book, but I would just write these little things and it was just therapeutic. And then one day I was doing a meditation and like an idea popped into my head for like the table of contents for a book. And I was like, oh man, I think I can do this. And so I just kind of expanded on each of those topics. You know, I wrote down the table of contents really quick, expanded on all the topics. And, you know, that was the beginning of my first book. I'm full of it, and so are you. And it's
Yeah.
really a book about our stories and about like how our stories influence our lives and understanding our stories so that we can change them, so we can show up in the world in an authentic and intentional way. So we're not just like running around bouncing off the walls. We're like intentional about what we're doing. So that's kind of what that book is all about. And the other ones, you know, one of them was because of my real estate team. They kept asking me the same questions over and over and over. And I'm like, I'm just going to put this into a Word document. So I put it all into a Word document and I'm like, oh, this is actually decent. So went to Amazon and, you know, boom, another book. And then the third one was an anthology. So with Les Brown. So that was super
Oh,
cool.
that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I wrote a chapter in a book with like 30 other people. And so that was just a really cool experience. I got to spend, I don't know, 4 or 5 weeks on weekly calls with Les Brown and all of these other people from all across the nation talking about personal growth and development and everything as we were all putting the book
Oh,
together. So that was kind of a cool experience.
yeah. You got to be hungry. You got to stay hungry.
That's right.
So what was your favorite Les Brownism?
I mean, I don't know that that's the one that always sticks with me, man.
Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
That's awesome. So I already know what's next for you. You're moving more into the leadership role, and I wish you the best on that. And with your final words as we wrap up, what are 3 things that our listeners can do today to put these fabulous ideas into action?
yeah, well, I guess it kind of depends on exactly what they really want to do, but I guess I'll put it in the frame of reference of if you're having trouble, maybe taking action, right? You're a little stuck. I think the first thing is to just kind of stop and like look at your situation, analyze your situation, what's happening, try to delineate the differences between facts and stories, right? Because that's all awareness, right? So bring awareness to the actual situation. And then I guess along that line too is what's the worst that could happen? If I take this risk, if I, you know, quit my job and go start this business, if I, you know, become a team lead instead of selling real estate, you know, all those kinds of things. If I make this transition, what's the worst thing that could happen? So if you kind of know what your situation is and you know what the worst thing that could happen is, that creates a frame of reference, which makes it, in my opinion, in my experience, easier to actually make a move. And then the next step is really simple. Take a step.
Yeah.
As small as it is, a new logo, a new name. You know, I kind of develop your avatar, right? Like I look at how much energy I got from creating my avatar, how much energy I got from creating Rialto and being clear on what my vision and mission and everything is with that group. So those can be the exciting baby steps that initiate the next step and the next step and the next step and the next step. So just kind of bring awareness to your situation, see what's going on, ask what's worse that could happen, and then take a step. Go from there.
And I would add on top, I love those 3 steps. I would add on top of those little baby steps, celebrate those steps as you go, because that will help you gain momentum. You know, and celebrate small successes. Those leads to big triumphs.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's forgotten art, I feel like these days.
Yeah. In other words, gratitude, you know, also fits into there.
Absolutely.
So, well, Dan, thanks so much. Before we go, I know that you have a free handbook that you'd like to offer our listeners. What can you tell us about that real quick?
Yeah, so it's the Sphere Marketing Handbook. That's the one that I wrote for the agents on my team. It's all about how to just market to your sphere, how to build a basic real estate business through relationships is essentially what it is. It's super short, succinct, boom, 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 step by step. So if you go to dangomer.com, I don't know when this will air, but likely by the time this airs, rialtopartners.com will be up, and you'll be able to get it at either rialtopartners.com, or you can go to dangomer.com, and there's you just put in your email address. It'll add you to my newsletter. I send out a weekly email that's about life and junk.
Cool.
and
Yeah.
and then it'll send you an e-copy of it. So
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again. Remember, faith and action go hand in hand. So keep the pedal and to the metal until next time on the Lead Machine Growth Show. I'm Paul Guyan and Dan Gomer. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you for tuning in to the Lead Machine Growth Show with Paul Guyan, where we show you how to tackle your tech, master your message, and design your dream so that you can transform your vision into reality. Remember to visit our website at www.leadmachinegrowthshow.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Lead Machine Growth Show.